friends of Kings of Horror, or as I like to call you, my chopping blockers and chopping blockettes. It is your friendly neighborhood horror hosts, Count Drahoon, Cathode Wray, and Hallow Ian here to, well, we're doing a little something special, aren't we, fellas?
I'd say so.
Yes, we are, Count. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so I thought it would be a good idea to sort of get us all together and sort of recap a little bit about 2025, maybe some of the things that we've done here on the Kings of Horror channel, but also we wanted to talk about some of our favorite and not so favorite horror films of 2025, and maybe talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to for next year. So without further ado, let's get right into the heart of the matter, and hopefully you won't feel the need to drive a stake through it. So, fellows, the three of us, we've been on the chopping block this season. We've hosted, I guess you could say, a pretty wide variety of different films for the channel this year, for all three of us, I guess it's our first time hosting for the chopping block. So, what I wanted to know from you two, what was it like to be invited in on the chopping block? And for you, what's a personal favorite episode, a personal favorite movie that you had the honor to host this season?
Um, you go ahead. Uh, um, it was a bit of a revelation. You think you have all the time in the world when you're a disembodied spirit stuck in a TV signal, but turns out you don't. And you really kind of get to crunch in and watching a movie 5, 6 times in one sitting, just being like, all right, what's this joke going to go here? And let me do this here. My favorite one that I've done so far is Demons, the Lamberto Bava movie. And for that one, I just wanted to go real research heavy and just be like, all right, I just want to find out A, what's happening in this movie, and B, who all these people are in it and who made it. And that sent me down this rabbit hole of like Dario Argento and Mario Bava and just like all the lovely Italian kind of giallo sleaze adjacent stuff. And it was just so much fun to kind of immerse myself in that and get to be very learned, as it were. Um, so yeah, that's as much as the question as I remember.
Yeah, my experience, it's been very interesting being on the chopping block this year. I originally began speaking with our friend Patrick over at Kings of Horror while I was in Japan. And so I had been traveling around Tokyo and Kyoto and some smaller cities like Takayama and Kanazawa. And so I ended up hosting quite a few Japanese speaking horror films and got to use my learned language that I had been studying for a couple of years now. And so that was really fun for me to be able to continue to use the Japanese language and combine it with horror hosting. The chopping block has also been our first experience at the horror hour with feature films. We are normally covering selection of short films. We'll usually cover like 3 to 5 movies in an episode. So having that continuity to be able to kind of develop our story along with the story that we are all watching uh, has been a very pleasant experience. And it hasn't come out on Kings of Horror yet, but my favorite film we watched this year was Tokyo Homestay Massacre. And definitely stick around for the final 15 minutes in that film. It is amazing. If you like Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell or House, those kinds of films, you are really going to love the climax of Tokyo Homestay Massacre.
Excellent. Okay, so that explains. I've noticed that you've picked a couple of Japanese films over the season. So are you? So you speak Japanese? Just out of curiosity, really quick, because you've piqued my interest. So, is there much difference between performing in front of a Japanese audience and an American audience?
It's calmer performing in front of a Japanese audience, and I would say my Nihongo chotto tsukoshi hanashimasu. Demo moto jototsu shitai desu, which to say I'm still learning and I would like to improve, and I have enjoyed the opportunity to continue using the language on the Kings of Horror. So that has been very fun, and I got to bring a lot of props from my travels onto my set, which you'll see quite a bit of that again in Tokyo Homestay Massacre, and a lot of it was there when we did our coverage of Ouija Japan.
Mhm. Very nice. And so, Ray, going back to what you said earlier about you would think that being trapped where you are, you'd have a little bit more time to focus on movies, and sometimes at I just can't imagine the busy schedule that you have, just going in between dimensions, and is it like yes, I guess it's a little prescient, since we're recording this in December, right before Christmas. So I was what is it kind of like Black Christmas, where they're when they're trying, when they tap the phones and they're looking for the where the killer's calling, and they have to, like, jump back and forth between like which line it is, but you had to physically do it back in those days, so it looks like they were kind of in a factory. Is that kind of similar what your day to day looks like? You're just kind of jumping from frequency to frequency.
A little bit, a little bit. I sometimes I'll end up in a place that is still, doing, that concludes our broadcast day. So as soon as I hear the Star Spangled Banner, I gotta like get out of there. Otherwise, I'm stuck for like another 12 hours. So
Interesting. All right, fellas. Well, why don't we go ahead and dive right into our recap of 2025 horror films? Let's uh, let's let's jump into what we didn't like this year. So, since I'm sort of looking at it from left to center to I'm at the right of my screen. So, Ian, why don't you chime in first? What was a movie that you really just a movie that just didn't float your boat this year in 2025?
It was a very good year for films and a very good year specifically for horror. I There are a few that kind of fell towards the bottom for me. Wolfman forgot to be a horror movie, but really the most standout, um, awful experience I had at the theater this year with the local theater that I haunt on occasion was with House of Eden, which was created by some YouTube TikToker influencer people. I am a ghost and far too old to know what platform they are most popular on, but Chris, Selena, and Jay are real life influencers, content creators. I'm not really sure, and they were greenlit to make a found footage horror film, and it was just bad. There was like I understand a lot of people probably find these folks funny. It was about getting these people that are followed on these social media platforms, their audiences into the theater, and I hope it did plenty of that. But they are short form content creators, not feature filmmakers, and this movie made that very, very apparent. Did either of you see this film?
no, the it rings a bell.
It's a Shutter original, so it is on Shutter now. And yeah, they go out to what's a haunted house. They're supposed to be investigating some sort of paranormal occurrence, and all the tropes that were like overplayed right after Blair Witch came out just played out in this film. It is just all of those bad tropes. I do have one positive thing to say about it, but you were going to say something, Count.
Well, I was just gonna say I was tempted to go see it because I my producers give me access to their AMC stubs, so it was playing at a local cinema. I thought about going to see it, but it was one of those, like, it's like I looked at it, I'm like, it could really be hit or miss. So I ended up picking a different movie that week, and I want to say that whatever I decided to go to see, I enjoyed it a lot more, because because you weren't the first person that I've heard um that it wasn't a good movie. It's House of Eden, and there's a movie called Run that came out this year. I was told by a few folks to stay away from those. So it sounds like I made the right decision.
I would say so. The one positive thing I will say is that I do really enjoy found footage films, and something that makes a good found footage film is the verisimilitude or the commitment to making sure that it, is being filmed and why is it being filmed. These are all content creators, they're going to be filming all the time. But something I think they did that was really interesting is that they used different frame sizes to capture that they were filming on different kinds of cameras. So they had 4:3, like they were filming on tape. They had the 9:16, so they were filming in vertical, and then they also had the normal like 4K, whether it's, yeah. So they had all of those, and you could tell what camera they were using at the time because the frame actually changed size on the screen. So that is, to try and not be entirely negative, that is the one positive I did take away from Chris Collins' directorial debut.
Okay. All right. So House of Eden, straight in the barrel, for lack of a better human phrase. Ray, how about yourself? What was the movie that you fell into, but you wish you hadn't?
So that is a wonderful benefit of being a disembodied video signal is I can access media from all over. So I might be in the year 1999, but I can watch 2025 movies. That being said, I might have better spent that time not experiencing the aforementioned Wolfman. I won't necessarily say a movie's bad. I'm not that kind of person, but I will say that it left me wanting. And it definitely did not live up to perhaps some of the expectations that the filmmakers had set up for themselves given their previous work. Um, I was a big fan of Lee Whannell's Upgrade, and his Invisible Man was all right. It may have been a little overblown for me in terms of the anticipation leading up to it, um, but it was still solid in terms of what it was doing something very definitive with that take. And I feel like Wolfman took some paradoxically big swings and not big enough. Um, I think it kind of played a little too fast and loose with the werewolf lore, and that if it called itself something other than Wolfman, like the whatever the term was that they used for it, like wolf spirit of the wolf or whatever, something along those lines, I might have been a bit more um, forgiving. But kind of positioning itself as like a new Universal monster thing, which the Universal monsters to me are some of my absolute favorite bits of media. Um, so to kind of ride those coattails through the mud was a bit of a letdown. Um, Unfortunately, I did not really find the characters particularly compelling. I could tell that they were trying to make the interaction between Christopher Abbott and the rest of his family kind of like tragic and misunderstood, but Julia Garner's character never really seemed to grasp the situation. She was always just kind of like reacting, in like a stark contrast to her performance in another movie this year, um, that I'll probably speak much higher of a little later.
It's funny you mentioned Wolfman. Wolfman was actually a very close second for me for worst movie that I saw this year. Um, it's funny. A friend of mine, um, I actually did a review on this movie earlier this year because I compared Nosferatu, the reboot of Nosferatu by Robert Eggers, with the Wolfman, because I feel like where the Wolfman failed as a modern reboot, Nosferatu picked up the ball, as it were. It was a much better film, I thought. And I do agree with you. Like I feel like if they hadn't marketed this as a reboot of the Wolfman and instead like made this into just a werewolf movie, maybe we wouldn't have walked away from it with such bad feelings. But
Mm.
because they decided to go in and make this into a Wolfman movie, there's just so much that was left to be desired. A friend of mine concocted the best phrase to describe it, which was undercooked. because the character development, it just kind of gets to a point and then just fizzles out.
Yep.
Even sort of the wolf transformation, it's like he transforms into a werewolf up to a point, and then it just something just stops working.
Yep. Yep.
And he doesn't really look like a werewolf. He kind of looks like a possum. So
Yeah. Good way to put it.
and yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Oh, yeah, I was going to just add that it just so many horror movies have this message that they're trying to get across now, right? This we see this term elevated horror, and something like the Wolfman, similar to like Boogeyman a couple of years ago, the message becomes the text rather than the subtext, and it just forgets to be a horror film. I do think it's interesting that you compared this to Eggers because we'll talk about things we're excited for next year, but Werewolf, his next film is one of my more anticipated, so it will be interesting to see what he does with a similar mythology.
Okay, so for my least favorite movie, like I said, it was close to Wolfman. I was thinking about naming Wolfman as my least favorite movie, but I think overall, the least favorite film that I saw in the theaters was a movie called Mickey 17. It came out in March of this year, starring Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo and Tony Collette. And you know, I'll take a cue from Ian and give you something positive that I liked about the movie. The world building for the science fiction was fantastic. It really was. I liked the creatures that they added into the mix because because the plot kind of deals with they're going into this planet, and there's like a native population of like these little they almost look like roly polies. They're these giant little creatures that sort of inhabit the planet. But at first glance, you think that they're, you know, is malicious, but they're actually not. But they speak telepathically, so they can't actually verbally communicate with other species. So they have to do everything through their brains. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. And Robert Pattinson, he's an actor that I really like. I really appreciate what he brought to this movie. His performance was wonderful. But what really, I don't know. It's like I feel like there was some social commentary to this film, and for some reason, for me, it just did not land well. And I think a lot of that has to do with I just think Mark Ruffalo's performance was so over the top that it was distracting, and it and I could definitely tell that they were really trying hard to play for laughs a lot. But some of the jokes probably would have landed better if Bong Joon Ho, the director of the movie, kind of told Ruffalo to maybe pull it back just a little bit. So it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. I wish he had had a bit of a more restrained performance in that regard, because otherwise, there were a lot of things about the movie that really worked, but because of Ruffalo's performance, and then there was just some things about the plot that just kind of didn't synchronize well, in my opinion. I think that's the biggest thing why the movie is at my bottom, because there was so much potential here. It's a science fiction movie. You've got a great cast, and of course, you have a phenomenal filmmaker at the helm. And this was Bong Joon Ho's first movie since Parasite. So I had really high expectations going in that this was going to be a superb movie, and I just feel like this kind of movie was very beneath Bong Joon Ho. So it was disappointing for me. So that's kind of why I put it towards the bottom.
I have not seen this yet, but I remember when the trailer started coming out, I jokingly called it Infinity Pool. because it looked like a more humorous version of that Infinity Pool film from last year with Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård. And yeah, Bong Joon-ho, fantastic director, but I have not had a chance to visit this yet, and I have heard many of the same kinds of feelings from folks that have
Mhm.
seen it.
So, did you see Infinity Pool by chance? Because I was always curious about that movie. I didn't have a chance to catch it.
I really, really enjoy the
Okay.
two junior Cronenberg films that I've seen. Brandon Cronenberg, both Possessor and Infinity Pool have been very well made films. I highly recommend both of them.
Okay. I will be sure to.
Yeah, Possessor is absolutely amazing, and Infinity Pool was a very good follow up.
Didn't he also make a movie back in I think the mid 2010s called Antiviral, or am I confusing that with a different filmmaker?
He
Rings a
does have
bell.
one other film, but I don't remember what the name is off the top of my head, and I have not seen it. I've only seen
Okay.
the other two. Yeah.
Okay, well, I will. I'll be sure to check out Infinity Pool at some point because like I said, I was one of those that was on my radar but kind of fell off there for a second. So I'll be happy to check it out. But switching gears a little bit, so the other kind of movie that I wanted us to talk about. Obviously, we're horror hosts. Horror is our bread and butter. It's what we do pretty much 24/7, 25/8, depending on how busy we actually are, before, before we reach our deadlines for Patrick. Uh, but what I wanted to know, what I was curious, gentlemen, was do you have a favorite non horror movie that you saw this year that you really enjoyed? Oh, oh,
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So some people may actually even consider this a bit of a horror film. There's some very horrific things that happen, and even the author of the story, Stephen King himself, in book 5 of the Dark Tower series, Wolves of the Kala, complains about genre when asking his friend, "Does no one eat stew?" Um, but The Long Walk was not a traditional horror film and was such a well-made film. This is the story of a group of teenage boys competing in an annual contest known as the Long Walk, and they have to walk at a certain pace. And once they fall beyond that pace or they stop walking, they are shot. And the winner gets a wish and a bunch of money. And this movie does deviate from King's book, which was written under his alias Richard Bachman, and it makes a change at the end um, that I think turns the story into something even more fantastic and brutal than the original text is. And I think that this happens with Stephen King films, and it has done very good for the stories in a number of times. Shawshank Redemption, the Mist ending change is absolutely fantastic, and I think this one is also up there with changes I just really appreciate to those stories. Um, the original story is kind of about like brotherhood in Vietnam. This one is still about brotherhood, but kind of in a more modern context. And it has some absolutely fantastic performances from Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, and Mark Hamill. So I definitely recommend this one. It's a little rough, and because it is considered horror by some other folks, I will also say the Pee Wee Herman documentary absolutely floored me this year and is definitely worth checking out and is not horror.
So one of the things that intrigued me about Long Walk, the screenplay was written by J.T. Molnar. And I'm actually a big fan of his. I saw his film. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it last year, but he wrote and directed a film called Strange Darling that came out last year. The film was shot entirely on 35 millimeter, and Ned Bagley Jr. Has a role in it. Uh, and I'm so sorry. I'm blanking a little bit on the cast list there, but Kyle Gallner is in it. He's actually the lead, but it was a fantastic movie. It was one of my favorite movies from last year. So I was intrigued. I wanted to check it out, but like I said, it was one of those things because the movie came out in October, and well, I'm sure you guys can relate. October is a very busy time for us, so unfortunately, that one kind of fell through the cracks. But I'd like to go back and check it out.
Definitely recommend it. Yeah, it was the last movie I got to see before I got to go on tour and actually hang out with Patrick at the Joe Bob event in Dallas. So, but
Nice.
yeah, make sure you get a chance to see The Long Walk.
So, where are you guys at? Was this at an Alamo Draft House? The event?
Oh, the Joe Bob event was at the Texas Theater in Dallas, where Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested, and so he did an all-night event there, and yeah, Silver Scream Effects. Professor Mortis was there from Atlanta as well, and so there was a lot of horror hosts in that audience, and we had an absolute blast for a major Halloween party, 12 hours worth of movies. So
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, because I went to Dallas Fort Worth earlier this year. I had a chance to go to to the Alamo Draft House there, which was It's John Carpenter themed, and it's right along John Carpenter Freeway in Dallas. So it was really neat.
that's very cool. I did not know that even existed. I'm a little bummed that I missed that, but I was only in town for a couple of days, and I got to visit the Dark Hour Haunted House over in Plano, which is an amazing haunted attraction, and then the Joe Bob event. But yeah, if I had known that, I definitely would have made it out just to see all the John Carpenter stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, but still, I mean, you went to the Texas Theater is a
Historic landmark,
right
yeah.
historic landmark. The fact you got to see Joe Bob, the fact that you got to hang out with Patrick. So you did well. You had a good
Yeah,
trip. It
I had an
sounds.
amazing time, and I had just been in New Orleans the week before that, and in Orlando the week before that. It was an excellent October, probably the best Halloween Hallow Ian has ever had. So
Did you do Horror Nights in Orlando?
I did Horror Nights and
Wow.
Epic Universe's Dark. My sister works at Universal, and so we got the express passes, and we did every
Nice.
haunt, and it was very fun to take my nieces through the Terrifier house, and we had to do both endings. So I do love a
Absolutely.
haunted attraction. I will say that if you are in the Dallas area, check out the Dark Hour. It is my new favorite haunted attraction that I have been to in the country. And they are wonderful people there, and it is a fantastically made haunt. So they're not paying me, but you should definitely check it out.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Ray, how about you?
This was what, a non-horror movie?
Yeah. Mhm.
So looking at my list here, non-horror movies, I'd almost be tempted to throw up Sinners, but I guess it has just enough horror to be horror. But I feel
Oh,
like the meat of that movie is not, strictly
Sinners
speaking,
was a
horror.
great one, but yeah, I think it's
It's horror enough.
It's
So I
more
guess
it's
I have to
horror, but it's
go.
also more than horror.
Yeah,
right.
it's very, very all encompassing. So to that end, I guess I'd have to go with Predator Badlands, but even then, some people kind of lump Predator in, but that one was definitely more of just like a straight up hero's journey movie, which I was all about. So,
Okay.
and technically, there's no humans that are killed, so it's PG-13. So,
Yeah, okay. I did see that. But I thought I mean that opening the opening scene. Well,
yeah,
I don't want to spoil it for anybody that
that's
hasn't
true.
seen it
That's
yet,
true.
but you know what I'm talking about. So, but yeah, they're not humans, so I mean you
Yeah,
can get away
if your
with
blood's not red,
that.
who cares?
That's right.
So,
Hmm. Hmm.
but yeah, it was such like a cool sci-fi deep dive into a thing that I hadn't really experienced since Rogue One, I want to say.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of just like very fulfilling in terms of getting at the core concepts of what those particular characters and stories can be about, given what's come before has already kind of well tread. a lot of the
Mhm.
other more obvious material. So I thought kind of that diversion for Predator was very refreshing.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
I also enjoyed this movie, but I was a little disappointed that all of the buildup we've had from Prey and
Mm.
Killer of Killers did not have
Mhm.
any impact on this film.
Yeah.
Especially Killer of Killers. I thought the ending of Killer of Killers was leading into what Badlands was going to be, and we were
Mhm.
going to get this kind of like world, but I guess that's what Predators is already. It's just that they have cooler characters in Killer of Killers. If you've not seen the animated film Killer of Killers, the Predator anthology series, also recommend that one. They give us
Yeah.
the Predator versus Samurai thing and or ninja thing, and that's something a lot of people wanted. So
Yeah, I did see Killer of Killers. I really enjoyed that. And I haven't quite finished Prey, but I've seen bits and pieces of it. So,
mm,
um,
Good.
well, so a film that I saw, I actually just saw this recently. And Ian, since you've been to Japan, you might appreciate this. It was a film starring Brendan Fraser called Rental Family. Um, it's very non-horror. But it's a touching story. It's about Brendan Fraser is an actor in this film. He's an American actor living in Tokyo, and gets a gig working for a company that hires out people to play certain roles, not on the stage, not in film, but in life. So, like, you could get hired, like, to be somebody's boyfriend or somebody's father or somebody's best friend. Which, in this case, Fraser is his first gig is pretending to be somebody's fiance, but one of the other gigs that he takes on in the film is he actually has to pretend to be a little girl's dad. So it's a very unique kind of movie. It's very touching. I loved it. I loved it so much, and it's interesting because the film is actually the debut of a filmmaker who her name escapes me. I believe her name is Hideki, if I'm saying that correctly.
mm,
She
mhm.
wrote and directed the film, and it's so incredible. And there's some familiar faces in there too. If you've been watching Apple TV's Monarch series, there's an actress in there who's in the main. Actually, there's quite a few actors from Monarch that are in that show that have pretty large roles. And also, there's an elder filmmaker in the movie. The actor, you will have recognized him if you have seen Shin Godzilla, and also some old Toho films from the 50s and the 60s as well. So it's a really good movie. I highly recommend it if you have the chance to watch it. I think it had a limited run in the theaters, so I would say at this point it's probably available on digital.
I am looking forward to seeing this one once Kitchen Witch returns from her holiday travels. Um, one of the co-hosts of the Horror Hour, we have this pegged as one of our Christmas watches. So this is also something that you can actually do in Japan. There is an episode of Conan O'Brien's travel show, Conan Must Go, where he rents a Japanese family while he is
Oh
traveling
wow!
around Japan.
Oh
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Well, that's fascinating. That makes the film even more interesting to me. That, like, this is an actual thing that people do. So it's introducing something very unique to Western audiences. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I can imagine that being a good Christmas watch. I mean, like I said, it's a very cozy. Uh, it's a family friendly movie, I would say. So I'd say either that or Paddington in Peru. So, which is also a good movie. I saw that earlier, but
I've heard nothing but good things about the Paddington movies.
you can't go wrong. Like they are really well. I just think Paul King is a great filmmaker.
Hmm.
If you've seen the Paddington trilogy, those movies are really good. But even his Wonka movie that came out late last year, it's a pretty solid movie.
Hmm.
Actually, I was
Okay.
surprised, and I am a huge fan of the original Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder. I love that movie so much, and I hate the Johnny Depp version
Hmm.
pretty radically. So I was very hesitant the idea of them touching Willy Wonka again. And I watched them. I was very pleasantly surprised at how well it turned out. And I would honestly say that Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa is one of his career bests. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that to be sarcastic or anything. Like, he is phenomenal. He does a great job. He's funny. He sings well. His the affect of his character, like he does something very different with the Oompa Loompa, and I really appreciate it.
Between that and Heretic, like he just had so much range in that year.
Yeah, he did, and I would also note he did a phenomenal job in Paddington 2 as well. I actually think that that's the best performance of his career.
Wow.
Like, just out of every movie, and I've seen, I mean, granted, I haven't seen every single Hugh Grant movie ever made, but I've seen quite a bit. I mean, I've seen, Lair of the White Worm. I saw the
Uh,
rom-coms that he made in the 90s, like Notting Hill and 9 Months. Saw him in Love Actually, of course. He did a I mean, he was the villain in Paddington 2, but like, he was a very fascinating villain because he was an actor. So he committed all of his crimes in like these really weird disguises. So it was really fun to watch. But you're right, Ray. He had a lot of range in that time frame. But moving on, so back to our bread and butter. Let's talk about our favorite horror films of 2025. So, Ian, starting with you, what was your favorite scare flick?
Well, there were many, many very good ones this year, but the one I found the most effective that continues to haunt me was the Philippou brothers' sophomore film, Bring Her Back. This
Mm,
is a story of a brother and a sister that uncovered some terrifying things going on at their new foster home with their foster mother. And there's not really much more that could be said about it without getting into spoiler territory. But Sally Hawkins is an amazing actor, and her performance in this is absolutely dreadful. And
mhm.
both of the Philippou brothers movies, Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, are ones I hesitate to go back and watch just because they're not the most fun time. It's not like Return of the Living Dead where I'm just going to throw it on in the background. These are impactful movies that really grind you up and make you feel something. Have either of you seen this?
Yes,
oh yeah.
yes, I've seen both. I've seen both of the. I've seen Bring Her Back, and I've seen Talk to Me.
Yeah. And I think
And I
this
know.
one's yeah, I think this one's actually even more powerful than Talk to Me. For me personally, I think this is the more frightening film.
It I love the Philippou brothers' work.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, like, the point that you made about, these aren't these aren't movies that you just watch on a whim. You're never gonna have a hard day and say, oh, you know what, I really need to watch Bring Her Back. That's what I'm feeling right now. These are very hard movies to watch. They're great films, but they're
Hmm.
very hard to watch because it's like you said, like um they deal with some intense subject matter, and I think particularly they deal with grief.
Yeah.
For me, Talk to Me kind of spoke to me, because the film came out around the time that I actually lost somebody that I was very close to.
Mm.
So there were certain scenes in that movie, and it wasn't even any of like the scare portions of the film, but it was like just the little things about that movie. Like, in the beginning of Talk to Me, there's this scene where the daughter, she's in the kitchen and she's got her headphones in, and the dad comes in and just asks her, and he's not being obnoxious or anything like that. But he's just asked her, like, "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" And you could just kind of tell it's like this very understated feeling of annoyance that the daughter has. It's like she really wants to yell at the dad, and just go crazy angry on him, but she doesn't. She just kind of bottles it all in that's in just in that quick second. And I feel like in order to capture that particular emotion, because it's a very difficult emotion to describe to somebody that hasn't lost somebody that's very close to them, those guys had been through some stuff in order for them to know what that feels like. Because that's a very difficult thing to communicate to people that maybe aren't familiar with that kind of emotion.
Mhm.
And I feel I can see that there's a trend going into that follow up with Bring Her Back. What I would say with Bring Her Back, like I don't have children,
Mm.
so it was a little hard for me to immediately grab onto that in terms of like the grief aspects. But what I will say about Bring Her Back was that, like you mentioned, like Sally Hawkins is very unsettling in that movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the Philippou brothers have both said that, they lost a friend, and that kind of inspired both of these films. And everyone thought that after the success of Talk to Me, we were going to get Talk to Me. And they have announced that that's going to happen. But I'm glad that they took time, and they obviously had an idea that was different than the continuation of that story, and had more things to process, and that
Mhm.
gave us Bring Her Back. Um, this is also a fine example of just how excellent of a year it was for child actors. There were a lot of really good kid actors this year. This film, um,
Absolutely.
28 years later, had a young lead. Life of Chuck, the other Stephen King adaptation from Mike Flanagan, had a very good young actor playing the young Tom Hiddleston's character and Chuck. And there were more. I'm not gonna remember all of them off the top of my head, but it was a fantastic year for kid actors.
Speaking of
Uh,
Life of Chuck, I just realized it's categorized as a 2024 release, but I think I saw it the first early part of this year. So I would
yeah.
probably put that somewhere in my top selections. Um, Probably a runner
Well,
up.
right. I was gonna say I thought that movie came out this year, like over the summer, because
Which
it
one?
came out. Life of Chuck.
I think
Is
it
it?
had its wide release this year, but it had like an earlier
Okay,
like a
so it
It
had
festival
a.
release.
it won the Toronto Film Festival in the summer of 2024. Yeah,
Oh,
So
okay.
Letterboxd considers it a 2024 movie. So when I
that's
did
yeah.
my narrowing by
Okay.
year, it cut it off. But I would put that up there.
Also
Okay.
a fantastic film. A rare case of sticking to Stephen King's text and having it turn out to be a good adaptation, which Mike Flanagan has proven he is the best at. Everybody else has to change something to make it good, but Mike
Right.
Flanagan can take it straight from the book to the screen and have it work out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that also came out. The wide release for this year, it came out around the same time that Long Walk did. Because it's like Stephen
Yes.
King like basically had like a double feature going at the same time. He had because
Mhm.
that
It
was all
was
kind of in like September and October.
well, Life of Chuck was spring, and
Okay.
then there was The Long Walk, but there were more Stephen King things. I mean, Welcome to Derry just finished. There was
Mhm.
The Running Man. The Running Man also just came out, which is another Bachman book, another game where somebody's trying to win money, and it is also another Stephen King adaptation.
And the monkey.
And The Monkey, yeah,
Mhm.
which is barely based on the book.
Yeah.
It's
Right. Right. I really enjoyed that one.
yeah,
I thought it was an unusually good February for horror movies because you
yeah.
had the monkey, but then you also had I don't know if either of you saw this one called Heart Eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I love Josh Rubin so much. The
Yes.
director of that film
Yeah,
is fantastic, and I'm glad he is getting kind of a more serious film. It sounds like he's working on with Paramount next year. I don't know if it's going to come out next year. It is in production now, but he has gained a lot of popularity through the Dropout Network, where
Mhm.
he is on the improv show Make Some Noise quite often, and he is absolutely hilarious there. So I was very happy that Hard Eyes was so good and it was so well received.
oh yeah, yeah. That was. As it, it was one of my favorites of the year for a while. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
it still was, but it didn't quite get the top, but but such a solid movie. Anyway, Ray.
So my top horror movie of the year um, would have to be, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is Weapons from Zach Cregger. We were just
Okay.
talking about Hard Eyes and Josh Rubin, and I'm
Uh,
just probably the biggest fan of the comedy to horror pipeline with
mhm,
Jordan Peele, Josh Rubin, Zach Cregger. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that I'm forgetting right now, but it's been a very exciting trajectory for all those guys.
mhm,
Um, and just being able to kind of be like, oh, there's 7 hot dogs in the scene because that's from a Whitey's Kids sketch. Just silly things like that is always kind of fun
right.
to peek out. But at the same time, Weapons was just so. It was a very kind of moving experience in terms of the way the narrative unfolds, which, if anybody's not familiar, it's about a group of 17 kids from like a third grade class go missing one night. They all just leave their houses simultaneously. And the movie's kind of about the fallout of that particular event.
Mhm,
And it does this very interesting narrative thing where it will shift perspectives, kind of like Magnolia. It's been cited as, I think of it as Breakfast of Champions, the Vonnegut book. Um, and you kind of learn more about the story from different perspectives
mhm,
gradually. And so it kind of just keeps pulling at you, kind of getting your interest further and further along until you like kind of can't stand it and you're like, why are we back here? I want to know what's happening next. But then you find out new things that reinforms what you've just seen. And it's
mhm,
very interesting um, to experience the story in that fashion, on top of which the kind of thematic elements to it. Being such a big fan of the Whitest Kids You Know sketch group from way back, to kind of follow their journey post TV show that they had, and kind of culminating in the passing of Trevor Moore, and how, who was a member of the group with Zach Cregger, and how Zach had gone on to say that his movies, you know, a little bit with Barbarian, he had written that while Trevor was still alive, but with Weapons was kind of about his dealing with that, and subsequently being a fan of both of them, kind of seeing between the lines about like, oh, that character's very Trevor coded kind of thing, or like that's a
mhm,
very kind of way that they used to interact that I can kind of see is him working through that, um, was kind of cathartic for me as well because it was just like such a gut punch um,
mhm,
when Trevor Moore passed away. So it's like, oh, we can kind of all collectively work through it with this movie while also experiencing just a very well made movie with a very compelling narrative, and really good performances, which is like to be expected, I guess, from the people that are in it. You don't really be like, oh, Josh Brolin, what's he doing? Like he's
mhm.
consistently good. So,
Yeah.
and then like like I alluded to earlier, Julia Garner, like it kind of just further highlighted to me the problems that I had with her character in Wolfman, because it never was her performance. Is kind of what I gathered after seeing her in this. I hadn't seen her in anything else, I guess, other than Fantastic Four, but
Mhm,
Silver Surfer's kind of a non-character. Um, so whatever kind of compunctions I had with Wolfman, it's like, all right, that's on the page. That's not, that's a performer doing what they can with what they got, and
mhm.
what she did with what she got in Weapons was brilliant.
Yeah, so Ray, this was actually my favorite horror film of the year as well. And I didn't really watch Whitest Kids You Know back in the day, but you bringing all of that up, and it makes me appreciate the film even more. Of course, I knew I knew Zach Kreger's background, in comedy.
Hmm.
But it is fast, like you guys mentioned before. It is fascinating to watch this sort of trajectory of like comedy guys getting into horror films and then actually doing well. But I think that that's I think James Whale said many years ago that comedy, screaming and laughing, are two sides of the same coin. So I think that there's just something psychologically there. It's like, your funny bone is connected to like your scary bone or something. So it kind of makes sense to make that sort of leap. But I really appreciated Weapons because I think it's the best script written this year of any movie I've seen because, Ray, you kind of alluded to it. There's a lot going on in this movie.
Mm.
There's so many different characters. There's so many different subplots, but they all converge perfectly. It's very succinct. It all comes together. I can't think of any plot holes. In the back of my mind, I don't remember any sort of like, well, wait a minute, what about this or what about that? It all came together as it should have. Um, the world building in terms of Gladys and how the witchcraft works, you know, it's you don't have to have graphics to explain everything. You get it, and the rules are pretty succinct.
Mhm.
And like you said, the performances were all phenomenal. And I actually kind of had the same revelation that you did about Julia Gardner because I actually said in a separate video that to me, Julia Gardner is this year's Margaret Qualley. Because if you recall last year, Qualley, and to be fair, I didn't see all of the movies that she was in last year, but she did Drive Away Dolls, Kinds of Kindness, and The Substance. And the first two did not do well at the box office at all. And now, Drive Away Dolls was very critically acclaimed, but Kinds of Kindness seems like everybody hated it. The critics hated it, the audiences hated it. So, but then she is in this horror film, The Substance, and it does extremely well, and it's a solid movie, and to me, it just kind of establishes her as like a new kid on the block, as it were. But I mean, she was kind of already on that trajectory because her and several others were in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood several years ago. But like, I think that this movie really made her a star. And I feel the same way about Julia Garner because earlier this year, you had The Wolfman, which we've already said how we feel about that one. But then she was in Fantastic Four. I wasn't a fan of it. There were things about the film that I liked, but I think there's a lot of diminishing returns with Marvel at this point. But then you have this movie where she just knocks it out of the park, and obviously it's because the writing is good and the fact that she is a really good actress as well. And it's like it's like okay, it's not her. She's got it. She's got everything that a movie star or a successful Hollywood actress should have. It's not her problem. Though whatever fault those other two movies had, it's either a problem in the direction, a problem in the writing, or both. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting how that's happened in the last couple of years, where you have that situation because I mean, let's just I mean, God forbid if if weapons hadn't been so carefully constructed, if it was made by perhaps a lesser writer or a lesser filmmaker, Julia Gardner may not have a career at this point. So it's very possible. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It kind of reminded me. I know this is a little bit of a weird comparison, but it kind of reminded me of Tremors a little bit. Not so much that the two stories are similar, but Tremors is actually a really solid screenplay. Like it's a very fast moving script, and the dialogue, the one liners are really spot on. And I feel the same way about Weapons in a lot of ways. It's a little bit of a longer movie, and obviously, the plot is a lot more complicated. But like I said, like I can't give Kreger enough credit because everything ties in so well and it moves so quickly. And I think that's really the success because I think if the movie was a slower paced movie and if it just dragged on, I don't think people would have gravitated towards it as much as they have in the last few months. So,
I do have one question, um, and I don't think there is an answer, and there doesn't need to be one. But why was Josh Brolin's character seeing the AK-47 in the sky?
you know
And
what?
forgive.
Uh, no, that honestly, that was the only thing about the movie that I didn't get. Um,
I don't
but
think we're supposed to, but
and we probably not. And honestly, I was totally fine with it.
yeah.
Not making sense. I talked to a friend of mine after I saw the movie. He seemed to interpret it as it's like a weird metaphor for Archer being a man of action.
Hmm. Okay. I could take or leave that answer. I also love this
Sure.
movie. The Rashomon like Rashomon aspects, Steel Magnolias, Breakfast of the God, yeah. All of those comparisons are good, and this movie used that so well to tell this absolutely bombastic story, and it's also a another sophomore success. You
Mhm.
know, Krager and the Philippou brothers both came out with fantastic first films, but I think both of their second films even surpassed what they had previously done. And Krager had some early on involvement with Companion that also came out earlier this year, but he
Another good
passed the
one.
ball and was able to focus on weapons, and I think that was the right choice for both of those films because I
Yeah,
think they both turned out pretty good.
they did.
And they
I
both
agree with you 100%.
both of those films, Companion and Weapons, had marketing campaigns that completely fooled me. Like when they came out with the second trailer for Companion, I was like, "Oh great, they've like spoiled too much of this movie. I don't want to go see it." And then I went and saw it and I was like, "Oh no, that wasn't a spoiler at all and I was wrong." And Weapons,
Mhm.
same thing. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a story that's kind of talking about the current state of what's happening in America on a fairly regular basis." And it was not about that thing that it was not about that social commentary that I thought it was going to be making at all. Like there was none of that
Mhm.
in there at all, and I was just like, I am so happy that I get to be here along for this ride, get to be completely tricked, and have trailers that aren't giving away too much because I am the person who shows up to the theater 20 minutes late now because I just don't want to see trailers. I just show
Right.
up 20 minutes after the start time because I want nothing to do with how people make trailers these days.
Well, it's like a lot of the trailers that come out, it's like you said, they either give too much away or they show the best parts of the movie. And then when you so a lot of times the trailer itself is better than the movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
so with
gives away
this
all
one
the
it's like
best.
right, so like with this one it's like you only saw like the first 2 minutes of the movie and that's
Mhm.
it.
Yep.
And it's like and so they literally sold the movie on a pretty decent trailer that I mean, they literally saved the best for last, which is that was so incredible. You don't see that anymore. You really don't. Like because I feel like Star Wars and a lot of the superhero movies that came out like past 2015 or so, like they kind of fell into that trope where like they weren't trailers per se, they were highlight reels from the
Mhm.
movies. So like that so they had their best scenes stuck right into the trailer. So you watch the trailer, you get amped up, and then you go in and you actually watch the movie, and you're really let down because like you had like super high expectations. And maybe the movie isn't bad per se, but like maybe it's just not quite this like epic masterpiece that you were hoping that it was going to be. So yeah, I really the marketing can't that's another thing with a lot of these horror films like they had good marketing campaigns behind them. You know, Sinners had a fantastic marketing campaign. I know Ray, you mentioned that earlier. That was actually a close second to me because it's like Sinners. I went back and forth for a long time between Sinners and Weapons on whether or not that was my favorite movie of the year. But Sinners had a great marketing campaign. Weapons, of course, Companion. I would even say like even the Monkey had a really good uh, marketing campaign as well. At the very least, they had great merchandising because I still have one of the Monkey popcorn bowls. It's on
Yeah.
my yeah. It's
Neon
here at the studio.
Neon really put a lot of faith in Osgood Perkins, and they did a huge marketing campaign for Longlegs, and it was very successful. It got people in the theater, no
Yes.
matter how you feel about the movie. It got people in the theater. So they did the same thing with the monkey, and yeah, I hope that that keeps returning for them. Osgood Perkins also had another movie that just recently came out, The Keeper. They did not
Yeah, I
put as
saw
much
that.
into the marketing for that, and I could see why.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say it's like, well, if you saw what I saw, you could imagine them not wanting to waste money on the marketing for that one.
Yep. Yep.
So it not a bad movie, but not my favorite Osgood Perkins film, to say the least. Well, gents, we kind of ran the gamut on some of our favorite movies for this year. Real quick before we close out, uh, is there a movie going into 2026 that you all are excited about seeing? And I'll add a little cherry on top to that question. So think of a movie that you're excited about seeing next year, but also what are you as a horror host excited about for 2026?
Good question. Uh, I think. Oh, looks like it is coming out next year. My favorite horror franchise of all time is Evil Dead, and so there's Evil Dead Burn that is supposed to come out in July next year, apparently. I've only seen a couple behind the scenes kind of things. One of them was like a very like chaotic, like out of focus shot of like some action that seemed really interesting. Um, but Evil Dead, just put those two words in front of a title, I'll see it. I don't care. Um, so I'm looking forward to that just inherently. Evil Dead Rise, I had fun with. I still like my Evil Dead on the funnier side, like Evil Dead 2. Um, but I'll still take it. And I also prefer it with Ash, but I'll still take it because they still produce it. And if more Evil Dead stuff does well, then maybe Bruce Campbell will do more Evil Dead stuff. Um, and then I think it's maybe 2027 at this point, but Zach Kreger's doing a Resident Evil movie that apparently is not quite the Resident Evil story that has been done to death. So I'm kind of excited for that. If I had to guess, it's going to be kind of more adjacent to Resident Evil 7, based on some of the tidbits that I've gathered, which was like the gnarliest Resident Evil. So I'll take it.
Is Seven Village?
That's 8.
That's 8. Okay.
Yeah, 7's the one that's almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre adjacent.
Okay. For me, it is Robert Eggers' Werewolf,
Mm.
which is coming out on
Mhm.
Christmas of 2026. So it's going to be a long wait for that one. If the Josh Rubin movie gets done and put out before that, I'll be looking forward to that. But I am very lucky to have two local independent theaters, and I go to the theater about once a week. So I see everything, and I'm excited for another year at the theaters. Oh, another one that I believe is coming out in 2026 is In a Violent Nature Part 2. And yeah, which was the first person perspective slasher movie that came out last year, and had a good chat with the actor at our local horror convention this year. And so if that makes it out, I'm also excited for that one.
Nice. Well, I think I'm excited about Werewolf as well, but I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is the sequel to Godzilla minus one.
Mm, yeah.
They just announced that it should be premiering in June of next year, so we only have to wait 6 more months for it to come out. But I don't know how you guys feel. So I saw a list that came out. I think maybe Rolling Stone put it out, but they said that it was the 100 best movies of the century, and some of a lot of them I agreed with. I mean, obviously, Lord of the Rings was on there, which I feel like it should be on there. There was a couple others that were on there that definitely should. Some maybe not so much, but Godzilla minus one was not on there, and I was super disappointed. And I took one look at that list. I'm like, well, Godzilla minus one's not on here. This isn't a real list. I really think that it's one of the best movies of this century so far. I really call me crazy. If anything, I think it's the best movie of the decade at the least. So I'm actually really excited to see where they take this new iteration of Godzilla movies because it's not like anything we've ever seen before, and I think the sequel is going to be really really neat. The director has said that the biggest challenge for him is to make a film that is of the same quality as Godzilla minus one, but has a kaiju that Godzilla can face. So, and that is a heck of a challenge, I must say. So, but I think just based off of just how great Godzilla minus one is, and just his track record overall, I think he might be able to pull it off. So we'll see. If anything, we get more Godzilla, and I've always said that bad Godzilla is better than no Godzilla at all. So,
Feel like he can really do something with the smog monster. Just redeem that
so
one.
that I think that's the rumor going around
Oh,
that it's going to be the smog monster. But and it's interesting because the next Godzilla Kong movie, they just announced that that the villain that they're going to face is Space Godzilla.
oh,
Um, yeah, 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 yeah. Which I don't know. In that universe, I think that kind of makes sense.
sure.
Because I mean, they fight aliens anyway, so they might as well have Space Godzilla. I was kind of hoping for either him or Destroya from the '90s era. Personally, I'd kind of just like for them to bring back Ghidorah. I think that would be kind of neat. But anyway, they don't pay me enough to make the big decisions up there at Legendary, so I don't have any say over that. But anyway, well, before we wrap up, guys, I'll ask again: is there anything that you are looking forward to? Any particular movies that anything that you got on the books coming up that you're excited for going into the new year?
Yeah, so we just had our Christmas special on local TV and got to release a claymation Rankin and Bass style new Christmas special where myself and my co-host Sam visit Iceland and meet Yolika Turin and Grilla and the Yule Lads. That is now available on the Hallow Ian Horror Hour YouTube page. And we have already started taking submissions of short films for season 4 of the Hallow Ian Horror Hour, which airs on local channel 28 here in the Seattle, Washington area. And then after it airs on TV, goes to our YouTube channel, so it is available everywhere there. We do have 8 episodes that are now available on Tubi, so you can catch us doing the horror host action there on Tubi, Plex, and Roku, actually. So all those free
Okay.
streaming services. And we would love to come back and do more features with the chopping block. So we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of months. What about yourself, Ray?
That's a remarkably good question. I have a couple of engagements out in meat space, as it were, where I do a mystery movie screening. The last one we did was A Bucket of Blood, which was a lot of fun. And we had an interactive exhibit right before the movie where we gave a bunch of people in the audience clay and let them sculpt stuff. And then at the end of the movie, and when it was all done, we let people vote on which sculpture they liked best. And then the winner got a gift certificate to like a local sculpture shop place. Um, so we've got a couple of those lined up. I'm still figuring out the movies themselves. I've got a short list. I'm just trying to figure out the order and the event. Like, do I want to do Street Fighter with a fighting game tournament? Maybe. Who knows? Carnival Souls with carnival games? It's all happening. In terms of what people can see online, I believe I've got a couple more on the line for Chopping Block, and the one I'm most excited for, because it's just the craziest movie that I've seen in a minute. And usually I keep it a surprise, but this one I'll divulge. It'll be the last one. It is The Corpse Grinders. It's a movie about cat food, and that's all I'll say.
the clay contest sounds like a lot of fun for a live show. And
It
Ian,
was.
I let me tell you something. Um, Sorry, the cat is attacking me. Um, I, I I am not sponsored by Tubi, but I bring them up so much just any given time that I should be, but I don't care. I love Tubi. It's one of my favorite streaming platforms ever. So so kudos to you for getting in on those platforms. What I'm looking forward to this year. So I think I've already decided that for my January feature length movie for Chopping Block, I'm going to host White Zombie. I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to host White Zombie or Messiah of Evil. So because somebody reminded me that it was in the public domain, so I just decided since I already shot White Zombie, I'll just go ahead and stick with it. And it's Bela Lugosi, you can't go wrong with that. But for 2026, I'm really excited because I will actually be hosting FrankenCon this year in Knoxville, Tennessee. We've got a great lineup of guests. Linnea Quigley is going to be there. Rhonda Shear is going to be there. Patrick and Shelby from Kings of Horror, they're going to be there as well. And those are just some of the guests that are announced. Brink Stevens is also going to be there. We've got an original Toxic Avenger reunion. Mark Toggle and a couple other folks are actually going to be. They're going to be doing a live Q&A for folks about the original Toxic Avenger. So we've got that going on. And then I will be returning next fall. I'm bringing back my old radio show. I used to do horror tales, like in like a podcast radio broadcast format. So I'll actually be performing that live on stage later this year. So, and hopefully more things to come, and also for you gentlemen as well. So, um, thank you both so much for taking me up on this and doing this. This has been a lot of fun. It's good to finally get to know you guys because I've watched you both from afar. I've admired the episodes that you put out on the chopping block. And for what it's worth, you got a lifelong fan in the count. Just my proverbial hat off to both of you, gentlemen.
Right back at you.
Right back at you.
So, real quick before we leave, give us your social media handles and where we can watch you, and then well, the night is still young, so I've got to get breakfast.
At Hallow Ian Horror Hour on all the socials, and I think we're only Instagram and YouTube. Uh, Maybe we have Blue Sky as well, but I don't know what they're doing with that or who's using that right now. So yeah, at Hallow Ian Horror Hour on YouTube and Instagram, and you can watch the show on Tubi, YouTube, Roku, Plex, or if you are in Seattle, Washington, tune in every Friday night at 8 p.m. to SCC TV, Channel 28. Bust out your antenna, plug in your cable, and do it the way Dead Media's favorite undead loves the most.
Fantastic. You can find me at Cathode Wray, Ray with a W TV. So that's it everywhere. It'd be easier to find places where I'm not. Um, and then one thing that I hope to be doing that I neglected to mention, just because it still seems like a bit of a far off goal, is streaming regularly again on Twitch with horror games and other games. I just like to play games based on movies, especially retro ones. Like I just picked up a bunch of old James Bond games and some Terminator games, and I'm going to suffer through those probably, but it'll be fun. Um, and then usually sometimes I'll sneak in like a public domain movie between gaming and things like that. So that's at Twitch. That's kind of where this whole operation started, and then kind of graduated into non-live material. But hopefully be able to get back into live material because that is a lot of fun. So yeah, that's it. At Cathode Ray, Ray with a W TV. There's a link tree that's all there. So check it out.
And for me, I am at Count Drahoon, all one word, pretty much everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, X. And you could also, I have my own YouTube channel, Count Drahoon Presents. I do movie reviews, and sometimes I'll host a movie if it's, if it's public domain. I don't know though. I don't know if you've been running into the same problem, fellas, but sometimes YouTube will strike you even if you show a public domain movie for some reason, because somebody in a past life uploaded that same file at some point, and it's like somehow that's a copyright claim. But anyway, I digress. But still a lot of fun content on Count Drahoon Presents, and I'm pretty active on Instagram. So if you ever want to drop in and say hello, message me. I'm a fairly tech savvy vampire, so which is rare these days. But yeah, and of course you can check out all three of us on the Kings of Horror. We've enjoyed our time for season 2 of the Chopping Block, and hopefully we'll be back for season 3, which, well, more on that later. But in any case, thanks for watching. And to all of our chopping blockers and chopping blockettes, ghouls and ghoulettes, or whatever your persuasion, we wish you a very happy and safe New